Well, folks, it is about that time of the month. Get your mind out of the gutter. It is time for another video games pickups video. Now, the unfortunate thing with me filming it on the day that I am is that, well, there's a few things happening right now. Black Ops 6 releases the day after I record this video, which means that my content schedule is completely booked for like the next month. And that's why I'm recording this video now, whereas I would have liked to wait a little bit because I actually have a few games on the way yet. So it's one of those things where it's like, I could have either waited to record this video, but then I don't know, there wasn't really a good time where I could have recorded this video for the rest of the month because after Black Ops 6 comes out, again, my content schedule is going to be completely packed. And the games that I ordered technically probably should have been in this video, but it is what it is. We'll throw them into the next pickups video next month. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about some video games. So we have about 8 games to go over, whereas it would have been a bit more, honestly. It gets to that point with video game collecting where you order so many games and you have so many things on the way. Like, I have a game coming in from Limited Run, but I ordered that back in July, and that'll be coming in like a month or two, so you know that'll be showing up whenever. Then there's stuff from like eBay, Mercari, so it's one of those things where it's like there's always something coming from somewhere. But anyway, we have 8 games to go over, as well as a handheld, which we'll be saving for very last. So I guess we'll go ahead and go over the PS3 games here. So you know what, let's start with the best game. I'm talking the like 10 out of 10 masterpiece of the century game that I ordered for PS3, that being EA Sports Active 2 Personal Trainer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I finally added the game to my collection. This is like, I mean, compared to any other game that I've played, Skyrim, GTA 5, Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, this trumps all. This game is absolutely fantastic. It has a heart-wrenching story. The characters are out of this world. The gameplay is so addicting. From the first moment that I played the game, I literally could not set it down for a solid 30 days straight. You see this guy on the front? I mean, the story was so good that I'm literally forgetting the characters' names right now. We're just gonna go ahead and call him Tom Cruise. Dude, it absolutely nailed it. But no, if I'm gonna keep it real for a minute, it was one of those situations where I'd order like a lot of games. A lot is like another term for a bundle in video game collecting, when you're, especially like when it comes to online and stuff. I mean, it's not only for video game collecting, there's also like lots for like, you know, Pokemon cards and movies and this, that, or the other. But it's one of those situations where the game that I was actually looking for, it was cheaper to get the lot, which was pretty cool, so I ended up just getting an extra game. So if I ever need a replacement case down the line, then there you go, there's that. But that's the first game, EA Sports Active 2 Personal Trainer, or EA Sports Personal Trainer Active, however you're supposed to say it. Next up, we have Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix. I always kind of get the names mixed up. This is specifically for the PS3. Obviously, I've played the Kingdom Hearts games. This is just one of those situations where I was like, hey, I don't have it for the PS3 yet. It's for a good price. I'll go ahead and pick it up. This one specifically includes Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, released for the first time in North America, Kingdom Hearts Rechanted Memories, card-based battle gameplay, and Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. So, you know, it has some of the DS titles in there, as well as, like, you know, the first Kingdom Hearts. And then obviously there's like other collections you can get, which I might as well go for. You know, there's some for different consoles, like you have them that were re-released for the PS3, but then they were like re-released again on the PS4 and all that. There's just something about having this game on the PS3 to where the DualShock 3 is so similar to the DualShock 2, so like, even though you're playing more of like a HD refined version of the game in this HD collection, it kind of still feels like you're playing the original in a way, because you have that controller that's so similar. So I don't know, just one of those nostalgia things, because obviously I have a lot of nostalgia for the PS2 version of Kingdom Hearts 1 specifically, which I've actually only played the PS2 version of Kingdom Hearts, so I don't know if there's any like real differences between the original and Final Mix, where it's like, oh yeah, you really need to play the Final Mix version specifically to see all these differences. Typically, when it comes to playing games, I go and play the vanilla version of the game. Whatever platform it released for first, I want to get that original intended vanilla experience, and then down the line, if I really want to replay a game, if I like really want to switch it up and see what like the differences are, then I'll play the re-release. But for the most part, I always just go back and play that original version. But I have the game, you know, I'll run through the Final Mix at some point when I want to go through and binge through the, you know, the Kingdom Hearts games again. It's also cool that they have 358 over 2 days here. However, it's represented as cinematics, whereas obviously it originally was for the Nintendo DS, and that's the way that I played the game. So I am actually really interested to sit down and watch 358 over 2 days just to see how it translates into cutscenes, because, you know, that's pretty cool, you know, literally taking all the gameplay out of it and just, like, making it into cutscenes. I'm really interested to see how they're going to translate all that gameplay into cinematics. The next two games might be a little head-scratchy just because there is newer versions of the game, but I'll explain it as we go. So for the first one here, GTA 5, as I just mentioned with Kingdom Hearts, if I'm going to play through a game, I like to just play through the original vanilla release just to kind of get that original intended vanilla experience. What was it like when that game first released? What was it like on that platform? Because sometimes I feel like when it comes to remasters and less so remakes, more or less just like, you know, like the actual remasters, I don't know, playing those games at higher frame rates and higher resolutions or quote-unquote remastered graphics, there's a lot of times where the remastered graphics actually take away from the art style and kind of butcher it to an extent of where the game just feels different. Like, this is kind of a bad example because this was more or less a remake, but when you look at the Halo 1 Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition, that was more or less a remake, because a remaster is when you're literally just porting the exact same, like, textures to a new console or a new platform, and you're just, like, up-resing the original assets, not touching anything outside of up-resing and some, like, you know, light tweaks here and there, but for the most part, it's gonna be the exact same experience, whereas a remake, it would be more like Combat Evolved, where they're actually, like, remaking those assets or remaking certain parts of the game. But even still, there's a lot of examples where I look at Dark Souls Remastered, for example, where, you know, the original Dark Souls looks so much better, in my opinion, when it comes to lighting, the textures, this, that, or the other. Sure, the remaster version is at a higher resolution, but it completely butchered the art style in a couple of aspects. Like, if you look at the Ornstein and Smo boss fight, when you watch that cutscene, when you watch the remaster version, they sort of just look like plastic figures standing there getting ready to fight the main character, whereas in the original, they were standing there in all of their glory with, like, the light reflecting off of their armor. They looked, I don't know, there was something with the contrast of the colors and the color scheme, and it just looked absolutely wonderful. It looked absolutely perfect. But then again, in the remaster, you know, completely butchered it, and there was many examples of that happening in many different games. So, just to get back on track here, that is why I typically just go for the vanilla versions of games, on top of, again, just wanting to get that original experience of, like, hey, what was it like playing this game on day one when it released on its original hardware? That's just how I like to do things. And GTA 5, obviously, I had this on PS3 back in the day, but it was a complicated situation where I had a Xbox 360 at my mom's, and I had a PS3 at my dad's, and as you guys know, I stopped talking to my dad almost 10 years ago at this point. So, you know, a couple years ago, I repurchased my own PS3, and I've just been going back and recollecting all the PS3 games that I had back in the day on PS3, and this was obviously one of them. I had it on both 360 and PS3. Obviously, I still have my 360 copy. In fact, I believe I have 2 or 3 Xbox 360 copies somehow. No idea how I got my hands on that many, if I'm gonna be honest, but there we go. I got it again on PS3, and again, GTA 5, it's one of those games where there is newer versions of the game available. You had the full, you know, like 1080p, up-resed, sort of remade version on PS4 and Xbox One. You know, it was more or less kind of like a remaster, but there was enough change to the game where it is sort of like a mini remake of sorts, because there was a lot that was replaced in terms of textures and touched up, but for the most part, mostly the same game. And then you have the new PS5, Series X, and then obviously PC version, which is just like, you know, the most modern, quote-unquote, definitive version of the game with all the content in terms of the stuff on GTA Online and having all the crazy 4K, 60 FPS ray tracing options and stuff. But when I look at GTA 5, I see a PS3 and 360 game, so that's still just where I go back to play it when it comes to replaying through the story. I've spoken my piece on resolutions and frame rates time and time again, and I'll do it time and time again until the day I die. Resolutions and frame rates do not matter, you know, as long as it's stable enough to play the game, then you're good. But even then, I don't even require a stable frame rate. I was literally just replaying Kirby's Adventure on the NES the other day, and I was having the time of my life. And if you played that game before, you know there's slowdown at literally like every 15 seconds throughout the game. Anytime there's more than like 2 or 3 characters on screen, the slowdown starts hitting. But I mean, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. I just like playing fun video games. So, you know, I'm fine playing the 720p, 30 FPS, sometimes down to 20 FPS version. I just like that experience, you know? I don't know. And there's also a thing with like remasters where sometimes the higher frame rates can make the game just feel not right. Like Resident Evil 4 at 60 FPS. It just doesn't feel right. I want to play it at 480p 30 FPS. It just feels right for that game. For PS1 games, I want to play them at 240p 20 to 30 FPS. There was some 60 FPS PS1 games, but for the most part, it was like 30 FPS dropping down to 20. It feels like 3D. The games just feel right that way. Playing up at 60 just feels wrong. Speaking of shoddy frame rates and performance, Skyrim on PS3. I mean, it's Skyrim on PS3. It was one of those things where I was looking at my collection. I was like, hey, it's going for a good price. I don't have it in my collection yet, specifically for the PS3. I actually showed it off in one of my previous videos, but obviously I've played the game before. I played it originally on Xbox, and then I went and got it again recently on Xbox 360 again, because I don't know what happened to my original copy. Just one of those things where I moved a bunch of times over the year, so I'm assuming it got lost in the shuffle or maybe traded in somewhere. But repurchased it on Xbox 360, another game where I know it's available on the Xbox One and PS4, and there's a next-gen patch which gives it 60 FPS, but I don't care. I want to play the 720p, 30 FPS, dropping down to 20 sometimes experience. That's the version that I have nostalgia for. That's the version that I enjoy playing. It just feels at home on these platforms and with that performance ratio, so went ahead and got it there because, again, was going for a good price. Next up, we have a game that I've already put hundreds of hours into, but I just wanted to buy again because there was a re-release of it, and that is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. You guys know me. I love my Dragon Ball. I literally have a poster of it right above where I'm recording right now, and you guys have seen it many times before when I'm recording on the other setup. This is a game where, you know, I put hundreds of hours into it over on Xbox One, but then they re-released different next gen, so I was like, hey, I'll go ahead and get it on PS5. Obviously, it's still sealed. I have yet to open it. I'm not sure what the differences are between the last gen and next gen version. I'm sure it's like, oh, the game runs at like 4K now. Maybe there's like a higher frame rate option. I'm not sure if there's like more DLC bundled in or one thing or another. But again, it's a next gen re-release. I wanted to get my hands on it. And plus the new box art, don't get me wrong, the old box art was super sick, having Goku standing there looking all tough. But this, I mean, like, you know, the old one, it just looked tough, right? Like, he was getting ready to go Super Saiyan. It's like, all right, this is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, MF. But then this one, you can just literally see him screaming, like, ah, man. Like, right through the cover, man. He's about to blast you in the face. Next up, we got Sonic Frontiers, aka the first open-world Sonic game. Now, this one is still sealed, but I did get the chance to play it. Honestly, I can't remember how I played it. It was available as a, like, free trial on either PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. But it was one of those. They were offering it as a trial for a bit, and I got it. I was able to play it that way, but it's one of those things where I was like, hey, this game doesn't go for much. It was like $20 brand new. It's Sonic. I love Sonic. It's open world Sonic. 110% adding it to my collection. The next Sonic game I'll be picking up is Sonic X Shadow Generations, because obviously I love Sonic Generations. And that game just looks insane. And there's also going to be levels from the movie added to that game at some point down the line. So yeah, I'm super excited for that one. So that one will be in one of the future pickups videos. Next up, we have Scarlet Nexus. Now, this is a game that I got to play for a bit back in the day when it was on Xbox Game Pass. I played it on Xbox One, but then they kind of, you know, yanked it out of Game Pass. So I was like, hey, I want to play that game again. So got on PS5, it was like $7 at GameStop or something. And then after my $5 monthly coupon, because I'm a pro member, it was like $1.30 something. So I was like, hey, yeah, dude, I want to get that game again. So got that on PS5. And Scarlet Nexus, man, this game is freaking awesome. Definitely check it out. I like barely ever see anybody talking about it, but it is so good. Not only is there obviously a lot of like anime inspiration in this game, and I mean, like, when it comes to the art style, it's like completely anime, but I also found out that there was like an anime that ties into this game. I didn't get the chance to watch it yet, but I saw like a little flyer in here for it. So sometime after Black Ops 6 releases and things die down a bit, I want to watch that anime. And then finally, this is a game that I've obviously already put thousands of hours into, but it was just one of those situations where it was cheap at GameStop, and the only way I had it was digitally on Xbox. And you guys know me, digital, it's a no-go, man. You gotta have it physical, or you don't have it at all. That's just as simple as it is, and I've said this before, the only game that I ever buy digitally is the yearly Call of Duty. And the only reason I buy digitally is on Xbox, and I game share with my stepdad. That's the only reason I buy digitally. I buy it so then he gets it as well as I. But it usually becomes a thing where I buy it so then me and him both have access to it, and then at some point throughout the year, whenever the game goes on even the slightest sale, even if it's only off by like $10 to $20, that's when I'll go ahead and usually on PlayStation, I will pick up the physical copy. They had brand new sealed copies, which is awesome because back in the day, you know, if you've been shopping at GameStop since like the early 2000s, you'll remember going into GameStop and they'd say, oh, here's a brand new game. But it wasn't brand new. Like, the seal was already off, it had clearly already been opened, and yet they were selling it to you as if it was brand new, which is obviously a no-go. But nowadays, like, when I went to buy this, they gave it to me brand new, sealed in the wrap and everything, like the official factory seal, which was awesome. So I don't know if that's something that they just changed recently, but that was very nice to see. So again, they had this there for like $20, something like that, and I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and get that. And yeah, man, it's Modern Warfare 3. This game's freaking awesome, especially after like the amount of content that they gave us throughout the year and how much that game was supported with events and camos and updates and this, that, and the other. Yeah, Modern Warfare 3 is definitely an S-tier Call of Duty. One of the best in terms of, you know, long-term support after the game released, in terms of all the content of the game, the gunplay itself. It is such an amazing game. All the maps and modes, there's literally over like 40 maps in the multiplayer. The zombies was a fresh, innovative spin on the formula. It is kind of a shame that they dropped support for it so early on in the year, but for the time that it was supported, it was a really fun mode, and I would like to see them kind of return to that at some point in the future with like the next Modern Warfare game, maybe if they want to iterate on it a bit. I will say, you know, when it comes to like Modern Warfare zombies and like the whole Warzone type of zombies versus just standard round-based zombies, I do definitely gravitate a bit more towards round-based zombies just because I feel like it's more infinitely replayable, whereas Modern Warfare Zombies, there is technically infinite replayability there because by, you know, technically any video game ever is infinitely replayable. I just feel like once you collect all the schematics and all that, you're kind of just left with that feeling of, well, it's time to just kind of run around and do contracts, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's still fun to run around and do contracts. But, you know, when you're comparing that to, like, classic round-based zombies, I don't really think there's any point in comparing them to each other, but considering the fact that Black Ops 6 is coming out here soon, I feel like Modern Warfare Zombies is one that I'll return to from time to time, but probably not as much, if I'm gonna be realistic, compared to, like, Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 1 zombies. For example, that being said, that's nothing against the mode. It's absolutely fantastic, and I would love to see what a full year of support could have looked like for a mode like that. Like, if Treyarch would have stuck with it throughout the entire year, if Sledgehammer would have developed it throughout the entire year, who knows, maybe it could have been a situation where it was just as infinitely replayable as, you know, Black Ops 2 Zombies, and it would be a mode that I'd return to on a weekly basis like I do with Black Ops 2 for years to come, but who knows. Again, it's still a really fun mode, and I really do hope that they can iterate on it and maybe give it a full year of support if they ever decide to return to this idea, which I'm pretty sure they will. Modern Warfare Zombies was a hit, and I mean, to this day, there's still tons of people talking about how much they love it and playing the modes, so time will tell. Also, let's just take a moment to admire this box art, dude. I've always thought that, like, the whole red aesthetic is so badass. Obviously, Modern Warfare always went for, like, I mean, at MW19, we had, like, the bluish aesthetic, but for, like, every other Modern Warfare game, like 2 and 3, the original 2 and 3, and then Modern Warfare 2 2022, it's always been, like, that green theme, whereas Black Ops has always been, like, red and orange. It was red with Cold War, and then orange was usually, like, the color, though, for, like, Black Ops, you know, like, 2 through 4 especially. But man, Modern Warfare going for that red, it just looks so good. And then finally, the handheld that I promised. Well, first, I guess I'll go ahead and show you guys the box. But yeah, so as you can see here, I went ahead and ordered my first official emulation device. I don't think I've ever ordered one of these before. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had one of these. Actually, no, that is a lie. I had one back in the day. It was by AT Games, and it was like, it was technically an emulation device, not on the level of this though. This right here is the Ambernic RG35XX Plus. Got it on sale for about 45, 50 bucks, something like that, so pretty good price. But yeah, the one I had back in the day, it was mainly just for like Sega Genesis stuff. It was by AT Games. There was an SD card, so I'm pretty sure you could add your own ROMs to it, but again, it was like sort of an emulation device, but not on the level of this where, you know, it has 2 separate SD cards, which I did, you know, I pimped this thing out, all right? I have a 64 SD card in there for like the OS and all that, and then I have a 256 gigabyte SD card for all of my ROMs, and I'm not gonna lie, 256 was just barely and not really even enough for all the ROMs that I added to this thing, but I made it work, and I'm kind of doing this thing right now where it's like, hey, if I want more space in the future, I can always replace it for like a 512, but for now, between the 256 in there, and then if I optimize it, I could add more ROMs to the 64, so I can make that work for now. But basically, why this device is so awesome is because there's the RG35XX, which is a great system. It can run, you know, like GBA games, and it can play basically anything up to PS1, no problem, but even then, there's going to be some PS1 games that might slightly struggle here and there, whereas the RG35XX Plus, you're spending like an extra maybe like 10-15 bucks, and you're guaranteed every single PS1 game to run, on top of getting access to Dreamcast, N64, and PlayStation portable games. Yes, PSP. And then there's also obviously like Sega Saturn and stuff. But yeah, this handheld is awesome. And the one of the main reasons that I got this handheld, because at first I wasn't exactly sold on it. I was like, all right, but I have other ways to play these games. If I want to emulate these games in a handheld form factor, I already have one of those controllers for my phone that, like, you know, you like put it on the sides and it's like, you know, it's whatever. You can just download the emulators on your phone and you have that experience right there. Like, I was like, why do I necessarily, like, I wanted this handheld, don't get me wrong, I really wanted this handheld just for the handheld form factor, on top of it looking like a Game Boy, because I had a Game Boy back in the day, so, you know, it's like really nostalgic and all that, with a gray, and then it has the same color buttons and all that. But, you know, I was like, all right, do I really need this right now, though? And that's when I realized that it has, yes, an HDMI port at the top, and not just that, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities, with the Wi-Fi that allows you to unlock retro achievements and RetroArch if you care about that stuff. Me personally, I don't care about achievements, I don't care about trophies. I respect the people that hunt that stuff, you know, that go for the platinum trophies on Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know, for me it's really a waste of time, but at the same time, it is cool just seeing the trophies pop and at least unlocking them, so then you have a snapshot in time and you go through your trophies like, oh, on this date I was playing this game and I beat this game and I did this in this game. You know, I think that's cool. Just, you know, platinum trophies though, like going to that extent, unlocking trophies in itself though, just have that snapshot in time, I think that's cool. So having Wi-Fi capabilities is really cool, but as I mentioned before, yeah, there's an HDMI slot on the top, which means you can consoleize this thing, and I did. I hooked up my DualShock 4 to this just to make sure it would work, and yeah, not only is this a handheld, which, you know, has all the things you would, there's other models of this handheld, okay? There's one called the RG35XXH, which comes with the exact same specs as this one. It'll run the exact same games, but it has analog sticks. Again, I wanted this one specifically just because it's more of that Game Boy form factor, and even though it doesn't have an analog stick, it isn't exactly necessary. In fact, when I play PlayStation 1 games, I use the D-pad for most of them, just because while the DualShocks, you know, like the analog sticks do work, I find for that most games, unless it was designed with those in mind, like Ape Escape, for example, they just tend to work a bit better with a D-pad. Like when I was playing Spyro 1 just a bit ago, you know, it was one of those things where I was like, you know, back in the day, I used to use the thumbstick for this one, but nowadays, revisiting it, I don't know why, it feels more natural using the D-pad in a lot of instances in that game. And then like games like Resident Evil, obviously tank control games, you always want to use the D-pad. Never use an analog stick for tank control games. That is a terrible idea. So yeah, you know, that's like the main reason that I got this thing, just because it's sort of like a handheld, you know, like PS1 in a way. And again, there is ways for me to do that with my Android phone because I have that controller, but I wanted a dedicated device. When it comes to the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance compatibility and all the other retro devices, that was more or less just an added bonus, just because I already have a modded, you know, DS and DSi and 3DS to where I can already emulate those games on a handheld Nintendo device if I really wanted to. But now that I have all those games on here readily available, and it's already in that form factor, yeah, I've been playing a ton of Game Boy Advance, and PS1, and all the other things that I had mentioned before, as well as consoleizing it, you know, hooking the DualShock 4 out to it, and this device has just been absolutely amazing. Again, I got it for like 45, 50 bucks because it was on sale. I had the 64GB SD in there, mainly for the OS, but I might optimize that in a way to be able to squeeze some more ROMs on there, since that is so much storage, and then the 256GB that is mainly holding all my ROMs right now. And yeah, I'm super happy with this device. It is freaking awesome. If you're curious as to like the I/O with the device or what else is on it, again, it's not a standard HDMI on the top, by the way. It's a mini HDMI. So if you ordered one of these, or if you're interested in it, make sure to get a mini HDMI to HDMI cord or adapter. Also, there is multiple devices in this price range that have the exact same specs. So they have the RG35XX Plus, make sure it's the Plus, the RG35XXH, which is the horizontal one with the analog sticks, as well as the RG35XX SP, which, you guessed it, yeah, it's trying to model after the Game Boy Advance SP, you know, the whole like clamshell design and everything, which that one's really slick. But again, I just wanted that original Game Boy form factor, and it's a really comfortable device. Anyway, as I was saying before though, yeah, you know, you got the charger and the headphone slots on the jack, you got two SD card things on the side, the power button there, you got the volume on the sides, you got the R1, R2, L1, R2 on the back, and if you ever need to access the battery, you just use like a Phillips head screwdriver right there. And otherwise, yeah, it's a really nice device. I'm absolutely loving it. Even just this morning before recording this, I played a couple of games. I ended up beating Sesame Street, Elmo's Adventures, and Grouchland, I think it was called. It wasn't a long game. It was literally like 10-15 minutes long. I literally beat it before. Like, I turned it on and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling nostalgic for Sesame Street. So I turned the game on and immediately as soon as I saw Elmo, I was like, man, I feel like a 3-year-old kid sitting in front of the CRT on Saturday morning again. And I started playing through the game, and yeah, I beat it in 15 minutes. You know, it said the end and the credits started rolling. I was like, wow. That was short, but it was fun. So, you know, that was fun. And then I started replaying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, which is an absolutely classic Game Boy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. It is such an amazing beat up. It is a bit more simplified compared to something like, say, Turtles in Time on the SNES or in the arcades, for example, but man, it is still just an all-time classic TMNT beat-em-up game. It is so good. In fact, I believe that game was even included in the recently released Cowabunga collection. They had a ton of games in there, including some of the Game Boy ones, so that's another way to play the game if you don't necessarily have a means to emulate the game if you want to check it out. There was also 2 other sequels released on the Game Boy, TMNT 2 and 3, respectively. But yeah, so far, I've gotten a ton of use out of this device, and I already know I'm going to continue to get a ton of use out of this device, and yeah, man, this is like my new baby right now. I gotta order a case of some kind for it, because right now, like, when I've been done using it, I've just been putting it back into the box, and just to, like, protect the screen. Not only, it also comes with a glass screen protector, which is awesome, love that. But, they gave you, like, this foam thing, so I've just been putting that over it just to, like, keep it safe, make sure it doesn't get all dinged up or whatever. But, yeah, I definitely gotta get, like, a real case for this thing at some point, because this isn't exactly, like, the most ideal setup in the world, but, you know, we'll get there when we get there. But anyway, that is all the pickups for this month, technically. Like I said, there is actually more games on the way, but that's just all the ones that I had here at the moment that aren't on the way, or with UPS or USPS or on an airplane somewhere. You know, who knows when I'll get that limited run game. Again, I ordered it back in July, but that's how it goes with limited run. You can expect to get it anywhere between like 6 to 12 months later, just because it wasn't even printed by the time, or they didn't even start printing by the time that I pre-ordered it, so I'll get that at some point. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to me babble. You know, I love getting to sit here and just chill out, talk about video games, and, you know, hang out with you guys for a bit. I know it's one of those things where some people might be like, man, you had 8 games and a handheld to talk about. You could have done that in 10 minutes. That's just not how I am. I like to sit down, hang out with my friends, and talk to you guys for a while, even if it means that we end up making like a 30-minute video out of it. You know, only the real ones are sticking through this long, so hopefully you enjoyed it. I would hope so if you sat through the entire video. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next month with another video games pickups video. But anyway, as always, massive shout out, thank you to all the Patrons and channel members. Thank you to all of you in the low ball tier, and an even bigger shout out to the big ball tier, Mill Asking, and Big Dad Manny, and a big shout out, thank you to all the G tier, run events, and Luchis Girl. Thank you guys so much. You guys are literal legends. I love you. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.